What's up, guys? Back with another Fallout 4 video, and today I figured we could talk about Dogmeat, who is arguably one of the more iconic companions that can join you during your travels throughout the wasteland. I'll talk about what we know about Dogmeat in this video, and then I'll talk about who I think Dogmeat's owner could possibly be. So I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and start. Now, there's not really a whole lot we know about Dogmeat, other than that the player can meet him at the very beginning of the game at the Red Rocket near Sanctuary Hills. Originally, it's likely that Bethesda intended on allowing the player to travel with both Dogmeat and an additional companion. And this is because not only do all of the companions have reactions to whether the player helps Dogmeat or not, but certain in-game perks like the Lone Wanderer that only work while not traveling with a companion end up working when the player travels with Dogmeat. I suppose it's also worth mentioning the obvious, but Dogmeat in Fallout 4 is a German Shepherd, which is a breed of dog that's commonly bred to be more intelligent. German Shepherds are commonly used to detect scents of various items, just like you see with Dogmeat in the game. Otherwise, they do make great guard and attack dogs, and are commonly used by police and even military forces in the real world. Interestingly, as far as previous Fallout games go, Dogmeat has typically had an owner. In Fallout 1, you meet Dogmeat in Junktown, and in Fallout 3, you can randomly encounter Dogmeat as a part of a random in-game event where Dogmeat and his owner will be fighting some raiders. The owner dies, and then Dogmeat can become the player's companion. However, in Fallout 4, it appears that Dogmeat doesn't have and may have never had an owner. At the very beginning of the game, just after you reach Preston and Company in the Concord Museum of Freedom, Mama Murphy reveals that she sent Dogmeat to Sanctuary Hills to find someone that could help them. But upon further questioning, she reveals he isn't her dog.
You're not what I expected Dogmeat would find in that little neighborhood, but oh, so much better.
So, he's your dog?
Aw, he ain't my dog. No, sir. Dogmeat, he's what you call his own man. You can't own a free spirit like that. But he chooses his friends and sticks with them. He'll stay by you now. I saw it.
Nick Valentine also talks a little bit about Dogmeat as well, further confirming that Dogmeat doesn't really seem to have an owner. After you've entered Kellogg's house in Diamond City, and just before you use Dogmeat to track Kellogg's scent, you can enter an exchange with Nick Valentine where Nick mentions the following.
Dogmeat, huh?
Hell of an animal. Doesn't really have an owner, but he's always ready to help out when he's needed. Go ahead. Let him sniff that cigar. See if he can find our man.
There's also an exchange with Nick Valentine a moment earlier where it's revealed that Nick Valentine can call Dogmeat with a special signal. And here is that clip.
Any suggestions, Nick?
Guess it's time to call in a favor. I know a specialist. He's never in one place for long, but he'll show up if I ask.
Who's this friend of yours, Nick?
Worked with him a few times, but he only likes certain people. Got a feeling you'll get on, though. You'll meet soon enough. Gonna send out the signal. It's a special frequency, so you won't hear it, but he will. Okay, I called him. Let's wait outside.
So out of all of this information, possibly the most important thing to take away is that Mama Murphy and Nick Valentine seem to imply that Dogmeat doesn't have an owner and that he seemingly just shows up and helps the player at random. When you start to think about this, this is very strange, as most of the other dogs in the game are frequently seen in the company of humans. Granted, there are rabid dogs that are on their own, but they generally tend to be less common. You also have the irradiated mongrels that are basically ghoulish versions of regular hunting dogs, and you also have mutant hounds, which may end up being the product of the Institute's FEV experimentation. But like regular dogs, both mutant hounds and mongrels either accompany super mutants or travel in wolf-like packs. In contrast, Dogmeat is far different than your average dog. mongrel, or mutant hound in the sense that he seems to mostly keep to himself. And while there is evidence of frequent interaction with humans and synths, as indicated by the dialogue between both Nick Valentine and Mama Murphy, Dogmeat seems to be unlike other dogs in the sense that at first, he doesn't appear to really have a master or owner. On some level, Dogmeat is much like a lone wolf in the sense that he doesn't appear to be a member of a clearly established pack. And according to Wikipedia, lone wolves, as in lone gray wolves, tend to be older wolves that were driven from their pack. Lone wolves also tend to be a little stronger and more aggressive than other wolves, and lone wolves also have more difficulty hunting on their own because much of their prey requires 2 or more wolves to successfully hunt. I think it would be fair to say that Dogmeat may be a little stronger than most dogs, and like the German Shepherd breed usually is, he may also tend to be far more aggressive as well. And it may also be difficult for Dogmeat to hunt for food on his own, so much like a regular dog, he hangs around humans and eats some of the food that they eat, and perhaps in exchange, he helps humans from time to time. Something that is mystifying is how Dogmeat is a German Shepherd, while the vast majority of the other dogs you can encounter either seem to be Rottweilers or Labradors. On the one hand, while we know that Dogmeat in Fallout 4 is modeled after a real-life dog named River that is owned by Joel Burgess and his wife Michelle, who work at Bethesda, Dogmeat is still a far different breed from other dogs that we can encounter in-game. This may suggest that Dogmeat may not necessarily have been born in the Commonwealth and may have come from another part of the American wasteland. It's fair to say that we can assume that most of the dogs and cats we see throughout the Commonwealth most likely are descendants of pets of vault dwellers from before the war. Otherwise, it seems like whatever dogs didn't make it into the vaults became mongrels or somehow got exposed to FEV like we've seen with mutant hounds. This would suggest to me that Dogmeat is possibly foreign to the Commonwealth, or maybe he was brought here by a trader. Perhaps Dogmeat was sold to someone that is long dead by the events of Fallout 4, and ever since, Dogmeat just wanders the Commonwealth helping those who need the aid. Now I'm sure you're all probably wondering, who is Dogmeat's owner in Fallout 4? Obviously, by the time you meet him, the sole survivor becomes Dogmeat's owner. However, before that, our 2 best contenders are going to be Nick Valentine and Mama Murphy, both of which strangely denied that they are Dogmeat's original owner. And if I had to place my bet on one of them, it would have to be Nick Valentine, as it appears that Nick was successfully able to train Dogmeat to respond to commands via the signal that he uses to call him. While Nick mentions the signal as a frequency that humans can't hear, I don't think this particular frequency would just get Dogmeat to come unless Nick actually trained Dogmeat to respond to it in this particular way. Much like how you would train your dog to perform a trick, it seems like Nick Valentine would have had to have trained Dogmeat to come when Nick plays that signal tone. And while Dogmeat is probably a smart dog in his own right, I doubt that he would have on his own just come when that specific signal tone was played. So on some level, it appears that Nick Valentine has the best relationship with Dogmeat until the sole survivor shows up and becomes Dogmeat's current owner. But why would the sole survivor become Dogmeat's owner when no one else previously could become Dogmeat's owner? Something that I think may actually be worth discussing is whether the lone wanderer could possibly be Dogmeat's previous owner. Granted, the Dogmeat that does appear in Fallout 3 isn't a German Shepherd and is actually an Australian cattle dog, much like the Australian cattle dog that you would see in Mad Max. So to be clear, the Dogmeat that is seen in Fallout 3 and the Dogmeat that is seen in Fallout 4 are definitely not the same dog. And while not likely, perhaps the lone wanderer may have raised this new German Shepherd and named it Dogmeat after their old dog. Perhaps the lone wanderer may have come to the Commonwealth at some point, and whether it was through death or some other circumstance, perhaps the lone wanderer got separated from his new dog. Over time, Dogmeat would wander the Commonwealth until he found Nick Valentine, who would occasionally feed him. In exchange, Nick Valentine taught him to come when he made a specific sound, so he could help Nick out on some cases. Then the sole survivor shows up, and of course the rest is history. It's strange because Dogmeat could have chosen any other individual to travel with, and yet he chooses the sole survivor. My theory as to why that is would be that it has something to do with the vault suit, and perhaps Dogmeat recognizes it and associates it with his previous owner, the Lone Wanderer. And you do have to admit that within the context of the game, it is kind of strange that Dogmeat would choose to travel with the sole survivor and become the sole survivor's dog, despite the fact that he could travel with any of the other hundreds or thousands of people that inhabit the Commonwealth. Or maybe Dogmeat's inclusion in Fallout 4 is simply fan service to people who really like Fallout 3, as Dogmeat was a very popular character from that particular game. But just to reiterate what I said earlier, I highly doubt it's the same Dogmeat from Fallout 3, and I can definitely guarantee that the Dogmeat that appears in Fallout 3 and the Dogmeat that appears in Fallout 4 are definitely not the same dog, since they are two entirely different breeds. And unlike something like Mirelurk's, which got a stylistic overhaul for Fallout 4, Fallout 4's Dogmeat couldn't be the same dog since 10 years have passed since the events of Fallout 3, and Fallout 3's Dogmeat would be at least 10 years old by this point and nearing the end of its life. The only other characters that could have been Dogmeat's previous owner would be the two dog breeders that you can encounter in Fallout 4. One of them is named Gene, who is a traveling merchant, and Erickson is a super mutant from Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC, who can also sell the player a dog for their settlement. The only thing is that in both of these cases, Gene and Erickson tend to breed and sell Rottweilers and Labradors, much like all of the other dogs that the player can find in the Commonwealth. At the end of the day, though, much of Dogmeat's origins are a mystery in Fallout 4, and what I think we can say for sure is that Nick Valentine and Dogmeat appear to be relatively well acquainted, and Mama Murphy appears to be at least somewhat acquainted with Dogmeat as well. And what is a little strange is how willing Dogmeat is to choose the sole survivor as his owner, where in the past, it seems like Dogmeat just kind of went from person to person. But maybe we'll learn a little bit more about the Dogmeat that appears in the next Fallout game. Alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.